Welcome students of Form 3. This is my part 2 of a two-part video about social groups and a small recap about what we talked about before. I will start with that. But if you want to use your book, you can find this in paragraph 2, chapter 2, titled Social Studies. So get it in front of you if you want to see what I'm talking about. And again, the learning outcomes at the end of this topic, you will be able to define and use terms and relations to various social groups and outline the characteristics of each type of social group. Yeah? And we also talked in the video before that define the papiamento, ta significa is aqui, define in papiamento is definir. So you have to define, use the terms in relation to various social groups. And you have to be able to use them, and you have to be able to outline the characteristics of these types. Yes, those are verbs. Behavioral verbs is use, define, and outline. All has to do with social groups. You have to use, define, and outline the characteristics and the terminology. What is a social group? Small recap. A social group consists out of two or more people who interact frequently, share common interests, have a feeling of unity, and work towards a common goal or objective. And we're talking about that unity. Kijk het ding papiamento. What does it mean in papiamento? Yes, a feeling of unity means sentido de unión of sentido de unidad. You have to have a feeling of, okay, this is my group. This is a group where I belong to. And the final one, have common expectations. In Hollands staat verwachtingen. Expectations of behavior that confirms established guidelines. So you expect the same thing of the behavior of the other people. You have the same thing that you find normal. And we have certain guidelines, certain limits in which you can behave yourself. And if you cross that limits, you fall outside of the group. Yeah, because within that social group, you have certain expectations of behavior, and also, among other things, you have a feeling of unity, sentido de unión or sentido de unidad. You have these two things. We've talked about primary and secondary groups. Yes, before. And now we'll look at the following concerning the social group. We'll look at informal and formal groups. Social groups can be classified as formal or informal, depending on how they are organized. Schools, girl guide groups, and labor unions are examples of formal groups. They have clear rules, they have a clear membership, they have a clear structure. The other kind of groups are, for instance, groups of friends, if coming from church, office, or school. You might have them yourself. This is an example of an informal group. Again, a sports team. Which kind of group do these members of a sports club belong to? Primarily, this would be a formal group. Yeah, there's a clear membership, clear structure, they socialize each other, there are clear rules about what and not to do during a game. So this is mainly, what you see here, is mainly a formal group, actually. And you might be a member of a sports team yourself, and you are a member of a school, so you are a member of different formal groups, actually. Did you know? So here we saw already that it's possible to be both member of a primary and a formal group, and it's both possible to be a member at the same time of a primary and informal group. So these categories overlap, and you can be a member of both groups at the same time. For instance, your class at school is a primary group because you have frequent face-to-face contact, but also you have rules governing the behavior in that group, which makes it primary and very formal. So without even knowing, you are a part of this category of groups. So a good assignment for yourself would be now, okay, of which kinds of groups am I a member and how can I recognize these kinds of groups in my life? This would be a good assignment for you to try out mentally. Again, we have this huge table with all kinds of categories. I won't talk about everything, but here you see common goals, clearly defined in a formal group of common goals. But when talking about that same common goals, yeah, they change with time and the type of activity. So they're not solid, they can change. Another example I can give of characteristics of formal and informal groups. Here you see marks of identity. In a formal group, like you can see here, you have uniform or dress code, a badge, or even a symbol, like you have at school. You have your school uniform, your polo, and you have a symbol on your chest. In an informal group, you may develop a mode of dress or speech, but it's not necessary. But you see that people who are friends, subconsciously, they start to behave, talk, and also dress in quite the same manner. And also subcultures, hip hop people, people who love punk music or electronic music, they tend to dress the same way, but it's not very strict as it would be in a formal group. And then the third one, an example. So you have to look at this yourself. You have to look at the table yourself. But for instance, well, let's say cooperation is required. Yeah, but here cooperation is not required or obligatory. It is coming from a relationship. You do it for each other, and not because it's an obligation, because not because it's required. It's coming from a relationship. You want to do it for each other. And here it's much more a rule to cooperate with each other. So here you see informal, it is much more coming from a relationship between two people or a group, or the group dynamics. And in a formal group, it is much more a requirement. So here you see the rest you have to look at yourself, all kinds of characteristics, like you can see here, of formal and informal groups, and look at those yourself. And again, it's your task to look at your own life and look at all kinds of formal and informal groups you are a part of online, in real life, at school, during sports, in your free time outside of school, and look at the characteristics that are there. We have three other kinds of groups remaining. Those of peer groups, those of interest groups, and pressure groups. And roughly we'll go through them. I might make a more detailed video afterwards because this is slightly more complicated than those of formal and informal groups. A peer group, the first one. A peer is persons of roughly your own age, similar age, and they have a similar social status and similar experiences, interests, and values. And people might be friends with their peers, but a peer group does not always consist of friends. And pression, peer pressure, is the influence a peer group places on individuals to conform, remember, conform to the values and behavior of the group. So to conform is a pressure that peers can give. Conform concerning dress, conform concerning your behavior, perhaps vaping, listening to kinds of music, um, having a kind of opinion. There is a certain kind of peer pressure going on from people from similar interests and similar experiences and different, similar actually, age. Peer pressure, very important. So and peer pressure can be positive, but it can also be very, very dangerous. So keep an eye out for that. Besides that, you also have interest groups. So like we said, children and adolescents are often said to be very vulnerable to peer pressure. So you guys keep an eye out for that. Keep thinking for yourself. Besides that, we have interest groups. An interest group is a group of individuals who share an interest, like gaming or a certain kind of sports, or a certain kind of science, or music, the group may exist to protect the interest of its members, and when this is the case, it might be involved in activities that are intended to influence public opinion or policy. National associations of hotel owners, farmers, or manufacturers, or people close by leaving the refinery may be examples of such groups. And third one, pressure groups seek to influence public opinion, like you can see here, public opinion. Let's erase the other ones. Public opinion. Pressure groups seek to influence public opinion and are usually involved with issues that affect people outside their membership. So pressure groups have a certain opinion about something, keeping the refinery open or close it, becoming a part of the Netherlands, or becoming independent of the Netherlands. There are pressure groups of those in Curacao, and they are usually involved with people that affect people outside their membership, perhaps even the whole country. Yeah, and for instance, public opinion is something that the majority of the people in a country can think. So you see a figure here, but that figure that you can see there consists out of multiple people, and that it can be public opinion. Yeah, opinion público. Yeah, and for instance, the people living in Buena Vista, close to the refinery, have organized themselves to get lesser fumes and smoke from the oil refinery into their neighborhood. And they try to influence public opinion concerning that. Exam tip, you might need to be able to define a social group. So you see the word define, you see here again, yes, you see here, or distinct entity, you should be able to identify and explain ways in which young people can benefit from belonging to formal social groups. So when you study for the exam, for the assessment, for the test, please look at this exam tip, and this will help you to a large extent in your preparation of the test. And don't tell this to other people, but I also look always at this exam tip to take questions from there. So it will be a very important thing to look at the exam tips that you can find in your textbook. Yeah, so look at it, please. Next page. Key points. Look at these key points. Again, this is for yourself, but for instance, key point number 3, social groups can be classified according to the closeness of the members, being informal or formal, for instance. And a formal group 4 has formally organized internal structure with certain roles, with certain functions, who is the leader, who does what the leader says, who keeps notes. So you have certain roles. And here you have key point 1 and key point 2. And again, next to the exam tips, this is also something I look at together with the goals of the paragraph at the beginning to make a test, to make an assessment. So don't talk to other people, but I will look at this too. I hope you found this video about the learning outcomes and about social groups very helpful. Again, ask me questions below if you have questions. Again, if you have questions, you can also ask them during class. Again, if you want to subscribe, please ring the bell below so you'll keep informed of new videos and new developments on my channel. Enjoy your afternoon, enjoy your morning, or enjoy your evening, and I hope to see you during class.